Mr. Andy Roberts.
Hello, good morning everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here. I see most people are over this side of the room, so I might just wander back and forth. Excuse my shiny head in front of the screen. As you may notice, I speak an obscure dialect of English called Australian. So, Aussie accent, indeed it is. I'm trying to tone it down. But if I talk too fast, please let me know, and I'll slow things down. Thank you very much, Jello, for your kind introduction. So I'm not very formal, so let's get that out of the way at the beginning. I am also a nerd. My background is coding, website design, and property portals and websites. So that's what I will be touching on a lot today. We'll be touching on some data, we'll be touching on a bunch of different things, as well as some trends that we're seeing in the local market here. So, I will be covering elements of PropTech. What is PropTech? It's property technology. Some elements within that may refer to Web3 and smart contracts. Some elements within that may refer to virtual twins, which is building modeling, or even the metaverse we might touch on very, very briefly. We'll also be touching on our main international markets and what they mean for property in the Philippines. As we move forward, we'll give you a bit more of an overview on what Property Access does and how we're different from some of the other players in the local market here, and also give you insights on why foreign people, specifically Japanese and Koreans, are buying property in the Philippines. We'll also be touching on the brand of Property Access. We're pretty new. We've been up and going in the local market for around 18 months for propertyaccess.ph, and we've also gathered a whole heap of insights and data on that we're happy to share with you. Okay, sounds pretty good. Let's go. So, basics about Property Access. We were established in 2016 by Hiroki Kazato and Sheila Bailon. Hiroki is Japanese, Sheila is Filipino. And their goal was to establish a bridge between Philippine property and Japanese property investors. And we've been quite successful at that over our journey. So it says here, we've registered 100 million USD worth of sales in Southeast Asian properties. And a great proportion of those are in the Philippines. Which is really interesting, and we'll go through the buyer behavior of our Japanese clients very shortly. So we've been in South Korea for around 18 months now, so we have some insights on the South Korean market also, and what we really pride ourselves on. We just moved down here, so 3.8 billion pesos worth of properties in the Philippines we've sold over our journey. And we partner with around 70 different companies, and we'll get onto those quite shortly. But what we really pride ourselves on is we represent property developers, obviously, property developers here in the Philippines and in other countries such as Malaysia, Cambodia, Vietnam, and so on. But what we also do is we represent our property investors and clients. And we really try and strike a great balance between looking after our developer clients, but also having the interest of our property investors there as well. Okay, so, that's a terrible photo, isn't it? I don't think that's my good side. So, you don't think so? I don't think so either. So, not to talk about myself too much, but my background is in telecommunications and website coding and building online businesses. Previously, in another life, I lived in Jakarta for about 6 years. I ran the largest property portal in Jakarta called rumah123.com or Rumah123, which was eventually sold to the REA Group just after I left. So that's my background. It's property, it's technology, and ensuring that the online and offline parts of the business come to work together really well. Let's get off that slide. Oh dear. Okay, so PropTech. We mentioned that earlier. Property and technology. This is an element that Property Access had to grow towards. Now, I've been with Property Access how long now? I don't even know. Maybe 2 years, 2.5 years. I came on board right in the middle of the pandemic, right? And I'm going to walk over here for a bit just so I'm not so far away from everyone. So, what our core business was pre-pandemic. was doing tour groups of Japanese people into the Philippines, maybe a couple of times a month. We would run some webinars and online facilities, but mainly everything was face-to-face. Now, the pandemic changed all of that. It really forced the entire market, not just us, but the entire market to reevaluate what the priorities were. So Hiroki, our CEO, started running 2 or 3 webinars a week. We did online portals, we did webinars, we did online meetings, and we still had our best sales year up to that date during the pandemic. We managed to pivot our business. We managed to grow a YouTube audience, a Facebook audience, and really get in touch with how we could communicate with people online. Part of how we did that is we really revamped all of our web infrastructure. So our websites, the loading speed, the interfacing, the search, everything like that. But this wasn't just happening to Property Access. This was industry-wide. You'll notice a lot of property developers around that time invested in 3D modeling for their showrooms, so people could bring themselves closer to the showroom without actually physically being in there. And that's something we did a lot. I mean, our Japanese team, our sales team, would call property developers here, ask them to get on Zoom quickly on their laptop and show off the physical showroom for customers who couldn't physically be there. It's really about bringing people closer to that actual experience. So I'll be talking about a couple of elements of prop tech I believe will be quite prevalent over the next 5 or 10 years. So we're going to look into a crystal ball here a little bit and try and understand where the market is going. So you may see this little diagram here. We've got something called Web3 up here. Has anyone heard of Web3 before? Yeah? All right. What is it?
That's the next phase of the internet.
Next phase of the internet. It basically is. It's the new technologies on the internet that will start coming out.
Blockchain based.
Yeah. Well, some parts of blockchain, yeah. So Web 2 was dominated by a few tech giants, right? Social media, Facebook, Google, all of these elements. What Web 3 is looking at, the ideal of Web 3 is decentralization. It's using blockchain, AI, machine learning, virtual reality, augmented reality, and all of these different technologies to really open up a new stage of the web. Now, what does this mean for property? I guess that's the big question. One element that we'll get onto in our next slide is smart contracts, which is something that I'm quite passionate about and I feel will be very prevalent in the markets over the next 5 to 10 years. Even now, it's beginning in a number of countries. You also have the metaverse. Who's heard of the metaverse? Pretty much everyone, right? Okay, so the funny thing is, the metaverse isn't new, the concept of it. There are actually thousands of metaverses already. Does anyone play Minecraft? Anyone? Oh, Chloe over there, excellent. All right, Minecraft is a metaverse. It's an online area where people go to live, to play, potentially to work. Fortnite is a metaverse. World of Warcraft, Decentraland, Second Life, all of these places are metaverses. What Facebook or Meta is attempting to do is create one overarching metaverse that, one metaverse to rule them all, basically. Because if I buy a sword in World of Warcraft, I can't transfer that to Fortnite. It has no currency or value than in its original metaverse. So that's the goal. How realistic that is and how that's going to go, well, many other people who are on bigger paychecks than me are debating that. But that's certainly something. There are already people selling virtual property. Has anyone heard of Decentraland? The Sandbox? These are actually virtual property portals. I think Decentraland has around 98,000 plots of land. One of the main ones sold a few years ago for $2.5 million for virtual property. It's sort of sunk a little bit in terms of valuation since then, but people are holding on to these to make money, and a lot of people already have. So that's virtual property. My thoughts are that virtual property will become an element, Will it be as popular as physical property? No, because you still need a physical place for your meat body to reside while you're online and while you're going through these areas. But certainly it will become a bit more of a trend. All right, let me wander back over here to my clicker. All right, so one of the elements I really want to talk about, as I mentioned, is smart contracts. So a smart contract is a digital contract that's built in a digital method using Ethereum, the blockchain language. And what it's there to do is facilitate contracts between a buyer and a seller without a middleman. So it allows, for example, in property, if I'm using a smart contract, it allows me to buy a property without a bank, without a notary, without anyone in the middle, apart from the smart contract itself. Now, what this also allows, which I feel is very exciting, is tokenization or fractionalization of a property. So, for example, if I have an apartment worth $400,000, I can split that into 40 tokens of $10,000 each and allow micro ownership for people who may not have enough money or capital to buy that apartment by themselves, but they can have a share of it and spread their investments along a bunch of different properties. And if the licensing is set up correctly, it means any rental income can then be divested every month or every quarter back along the contract to the end suppliers. What that also means is that there will be an unbreakable copy of that contract on everyone's computer because it's using peer-to-peer technology. So the contract can't be altered. There's complete transparency as to what's happening on that contract, who's bought in, what rental proceeds are coming through, and it's all provided along the blockchain. So I feel that's a very exciting part of technology that will be emerging. There are many industries using smart contracts right now. There are already some companies providing smart contracts for real estate, and I feel this is an area that will grow as we move along, which is exciting because my parents' generation, as it is here, were able to buy property a lot more affordably than a lot of people can now. You have rising prices versus real wages, so this is an opportunity for new people to invest in property because we know that property is one of the most stable and profitable areas for your investment portfolio, and everyone should have an opportunity to get in there. Okay, that wasn't too nerdy, right? That was okay? All right, great. That's a relief. So, what are we about? So, what we've done and worked very hard on is building the technology in our websites to give us a dashboard that allows us to push property listings into any market that we wish. So we have propertyaccess.ph, which is also our property portal here in the Philippines, but we have propertyaccess.kr, propertyaccess.jp for Japan. We have propertyaccessjapan.com for actual Japanese properties that we're selling to the wider market. So we have a number of these websites. What we can do is upload a listing via our very easy upload form. We can have it pushed out to the Philippines, but if we wish to promote that property in Japan or in Korea, it takes us 30 seconds to push it to that other platform. All we need to do is translate the title and the description because everything else is auto-translated. All of the amenities, the facilities, the locations, everything we've already translated on our platform. So it allows us to scale very quickly in different countries. What we've also built, and we have to thank Jello very much for this one, thanks Jello, is we've set up our international digital marketing group. So if we wish to work with a property developer in the Philippines to sell property in Japan, we can actually run Google Ads, Line, Facebook, YouTube promotions in Japan or in Korea. We can run webinars, we can do private meetings and help sell properties in these different markets as well, using a variety of digital marketing mediums. So that's an area we've definitely skilled up over the last couple of years at Property Access. Okay, let's move right along. So what I'd like to go through now is the differences between some of our markets. There are similarities between Japan and Korea, but there are also large differences. So when we look at our Japanese market, we would say that return on investment and yield are the number one factor for investing in properties for our Japanese clients. I would say around 98% of our Japanese clients are property investors. They're not buying it for personal use. They're buying it for the yield and the return on investment. They're more conservative. So Japanese people can take 4 to 6 months to conclude a property transaction from the beginning, the introduction, all the way through to the end. This may include finding out about us on social media or through some of our promotions in Japan. It may involve webinars, one-on-one meetings, and even trips to Manila that we facilitate a couple of times a month to really view the property and understand it well. Having said that, quite a few of our Japanese clients purchase property without ever setting foot in Manila, because so long as they get the numbers, they're assured of the credibility of us and the property developer, as well as the project, they can feel comfortable then purchasing that property. The other thing for Japanese people, which we've got just here, is accessibility to transport. This is a very, very large element for Japanese investors. Having access to an MRT or a subway is almost essential for them for purchasing property. It is very, very important, even if the transport hub is in the process of being built. So if we move along from the EC, just go back here, for the Korean market, I'd say this is a newer market for us, just disclaimer, we've been there for around 18 months, so our data for the Korean market probably isn't as complete as it is for the Japanese market. But we could split our Korean market into 3 different areas, which seem about equal. First one is retirees. Second is second home. Third is investment. And as far as we can tell, we're pretty evenly split along these areas. So what are Koreans looking for, especially for retirement and second home? Golf.
Yes.
Golf is one of the biggest keywords we run in Naver and in Google in Korea. So Korea, for those who aren't aware, Korea has 2 main competing search engines. Naver is the Korean language search engine that started around the same time as Google. Then you have Google as a competitor. And what we've found is if you're 40 and above, you'll probably use Naver. If you're 40 and below, you'll probably use Google, which is a really, really cool split that we've found. So yeah, what are they looking for? Golf. It's huge, as well as beach. Beach, sun, holidays, relaxation. We'll go into property destinations later on, but Cebu is quite popular for Koreans. Clark is a popular area, as well as Metro Manila. Whereas when we're looking at Japan, you're probably looking Metro Manila and Cebu are the main areas that we focus on. So if we're splitting this as well, another element that we've found, because Koreans are the #1 visitors to the Philippines. I wasn't aware of that beforehand. I thought it'd be Americans or someone like that. It's Koreans. And what they're also keen on is the English language schools in the Philippines for their kids. Because English language tutoring here is probably more advanced than in Korea. So this is another element that we've found is quite popular for Koreans and something that we target in our keywords and our online algorithms. Okay, and the other thing would be, in terms of apartment size, our Japanese investors really prefer studio or 1-bedroom units. A lot of the time they purchase multiple units, whereas Koreans probably prefer more branded residences and larger sizes for their purchases, because they tend to be more personal than investment. Okay. All right, that's a fair bit to go through, but that's some major stats that we've found from our learnings in these markets. So let's go through our demographics across the board. So this is propertyaccess.ph, which has the most traffic out of any of our websites, we're happy to say. But it's also counting for Korea and Japan. So when we look at our age demographic, millennials account for around 43% of our traffic, which is great because that's bang on. They're the people who are really looking at investing in their first houses and so forth, as well as rentals. So we find that not just in the Philippines, but globally, they are reshaping the real estate market. They're really coming in. Previously, it was Gen X and Boomers who were the major demographics there. But I think over the last 5 years, the millennials have really shifted and really begun the journey to home ownership. Now, because millennials are the first generation who are really digitally savvy, I mean, I say that, I'm just Gen X, right? Like 79, so I just missed that gap. But millennials are the first generation to have grown up with smartphones, with technology and so forth. And they accept technology as a part of their normal lives. So that means that the real estate industry has to keep pace with the demands that they have. So if I just scroll down, so we find that millennials are more likely than previous generations to really want the different technology impacting their property search preferences. And that's why we've built PropertyAccess.ph in a very visual, interactive way to appeal to this demographic. So, gender. This is an interesting one. So, for the Philippines, let's touch on the Philippines first. What do you guys think? Do you think we have a greater proportion of males or females browsing the website?
Female.
You're completely right. Yes. It's around 70%. So what we would say is the female of the house is almost the gatekeeper or the one who's really interested in the home finance and how the future will be in terms of houses. So this is one thing that's very prevalent, and we find this is consistent in the Philippines. This stat does not waver. So it's very, very clear. So, higher education and, wanting to really make a future for the family is a vital performance. Now, when we come to Japan and Korea, do you think this statistic would be the same? What do you think?
No.
You're right. It's actually the complete opposite. So males are around 68 to 70% of the browsers on our website, as well as in our investment seminars and webinars and so forth. It's a complete opposite. So we find that in Japan and Korea, the male of the house is generally the one to search for property and make property decisions. So very, very different. Location. So CBD areas are still very important. I know during the pandemic, we had that whole sea change thing where people are like, oh, I'm working remotely anyway. I'm going to go live by the beach. I'm going to work from a shack there. It's going to be wonderful. But what we've seen, especially I'm from Melbourne, right? So a lot of people ran out of Melbourne and just went down the coast to their ideal house. A lot of people are coming back to the cities now. And in terms of investment, we still find CBD areas are the most important areas. In terms of our website in the Philippines, the same areas keep popping up in search. Quezon City is very, very high up the top, usually number one. Ortigas, Mandaluyong, Taguig, those areas are the areas that we find again and again are the main areas that people are searching for. BGC, obviously, is very high there too. It's about employment opportunities as well. A lot of companies are back. Is anyone still working remotely here? Anyone? Just a couple. All right. So, a lot of people are back in the office again now, and that's driving trends because we all know about the traffic in Manila, right? Yeah. I mean, I lived in Jakarta for 6 years, and I reckon Jakarta's possibly just above Manila in terms of traffic, but it's a pretty close race there. It's not one you want to win, really. So we find location, as I mentioned earlier, Cebu, Metro Manila, these are the areas that our Japanese investors are very, very keen on. Okay, so what we're about for Property Access, we know that in the Philippines especially, over 80% of our traffic is on mobile phone. Mobile phones sometimes don't have the best connection, right? You might go onto 4G, there are black spots, all of these things, right? So we still want our website to load in under 3 seconds. We've optimized everything on the homepage using a variety of techniques to ensure that the website just loads and loads quickly. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have to look good, still has to be functional, but we've put a lot of elements in there to try and fix it up. We could also accommodate thousands and thousands of viewers at any time. We're using AWS, we're built on a Kubernetes system which allows clusterized loading and different workers, so it really means that our website can load quickly. We use a system called Algolia for search, which means that as you're typing in what you're looking for, your results will appear in milliseconds. So we want people to be able to find the properties they need as quickly as possible. No one's got time these days. Everyone's used to things loading quickly and being in front of them. I get that. I have the attention span of a dropped cabbage sometimes. I feel if something doesn't load within a few seconds, I'm done. I haven't got time for this. So we want to make sure that we can get people's attention and get them the properties they need without taking a long time. But what we've also loaded is if a property developer has a 3D tour in Matterport, for example, which is common, on the back end, they just load in the URL of their 3D tour and we automatically pass that within our website. Whether you're on mobile phone or whether you're on a desktop or a laptop, we can show these elements to you. So we want to make sure we've got big videos, big visuals. Everyone eats with their eyes. We also have a very strict uploading policy. We don't allow emojis. We don't allow huge things over the photos. We don't allow blurry photos or grainy photos. We don't want to have the most property listings in the market. We just want to have the best ones. And we want to ensure that any of the consumers who come to our website are getting the right experience and getting the right information. We also, if there are property agents or listings that have been inactive for quite some time, we remove them. As I said, we don't want the most property listings, we just want the right ones for the market. Just like we don't want to send hundreds of leads to our clients every month, we just want to send the right leads. We don't want to generate so much traffic that we're getting a lot of spam and a lot of rubbish leads. What we're really focused on is value and quality, and we'll go through these things quite shortly. Okay, moving along. So this is our new branding campaign. You may have seen it. If you've clicked on it, it's probably following you around the internet. We do a lot of remarketing. So this is actually Yvette, our finance manager. So thank you, Yvette, for being on here. But find faster, buy smarter, live bigger. And that's what we're really about at Property Access. We just want to help you make the right decision on property, because for most people, this is the biggest financial decision they will make in their lives. It's huge. It comes with a lot of anxiety. It comes with a lot of trepidation. So we want to make sure that you get the information you need to make that vital decision for you and your family. So when we say great experience, we actually have a product development team. We're constantly refining the user experience and the user interface of our websites. We do A/B testing. We really want to make sure that it works and that it's easy. One thing I use is my dad. So my dad isn't very technically savvy. He's actually terrible. So I call it the Ross Roberts test. If he's able to use the website without throwing his phone down, we get a tick. Because if he can navigate it, anyone can. Thanks, Dad. As I mentioned, we've got up-to-date listings and we really want to elevate the property experience for people. Next is we want to be approachable. We're very focused on our content, not just property content, but lifestyle content. We found that during the pandemic, people were stuck inside the four walls of their house for a long, long time. There's all those jokes about everyone learned how to bake sourdough bread, right? Because everyone's stuck at home. We want to make sure that your home's your castle, and these are elements you can do, whether it's color matching, whether it's recipes, whether it's decorating your house, or even architecture. What are the foundations of architecture? How does it work? How are communities built? And this is actually something that I feel the Philippines does really well. I was here 15 years ago, long time ago. I'm showing my age, aren't I? Yeah. But I was working for, I was running a call center here. I was here for around 3 months. You know what was in BGC at that stage? There was like a couple of bars and a couple of buildings. Literally, I come back, 12, 13 years later, and there's an entire metropolis there. And it's built, it's actually, I've heard people in Singapore, people in Malaysia talk about BGC, because we tried doing that in Melbourne quite badly. Has anyone been to Melbourne before? Anyone? Okay. So there's an area called the Docklands, just outside the city, right? It used to be full of wharfs and people unloading ships. So they decided they'd gentrify that area, and they built a whole heap of high-rise apartments, but nothing else. There were no restaurants. There were no bars, there were no schools, there were no doctors, there were no police stations. All of these essential elements that you need to create a community and the fabric of a community were disappeared. And right now, the Docklands, 20 years on, is still a wasteland. And they're talking about redeveloping it again. BGC is an example of how to do it right. So it has actually got quite a bit of attention from around the world. So go Philippines. It's very well regarded. So what we try and do is create neighbourhood guides about different areas, not just for locals here, but that helps, but for people overseas. Because we want our Japanese people to understand it. We want our Korean clients to understand it. We actually had a Korean client here about a month ago that we did a tour with, and we went around to a few places, and we were in BGC about to enter a property developer's building, and he looked around and said, this is just like Singapore. And he was interested, and he bought a property from that property developer that we went into, just because he liked the environs of BGC. So it does work, and it does matter in terms of this community building. So if we move down, we want to be a premium website, and that doesn't mean that we're expensive, but it means that we have a top quality service, we maintain our site, and we take pride in the content that's there. We don't want old listings. We don't want people to see the same photos in every single listing that you go down, the same apartment photo repeated 20 times. We want to make sure that it's bespoke and that it's accurate. And that's why we curate all of our properties very carefully. That's why we have a lead time. If a property agent or developer uploads their properties, there will be a short delay while one of our staff actually manually checks the listing, checks the photos, checks the accuracy of the information before we upload it. In terms of trustworthy, we want to make sure that we have the best agents and the best real estate professionals in their respective fields, as well as the best property developers. And we're not just talking about premium property or premium level areas, but people who are responsive. We want people who send leads on our website to get a response and to get an accurate and timely response from our property agents and developers. Okay, and in terms of reliable, we want to make sure that we connect people to the right properties and that our website doesn't fall over. So that's one of my KPIs. So if our website goes down even for 2 seconds, I'm getting a screaming alarm on my phone, even if it's 3 o'clock in the morning. So thankfully, there hasn't been anything like that for quite some time, knock on wood. But we want to make sure that we're there for people when we need to be, and that we're reliable, and that everything's working properly. So in terms of disrupting the market, what we're doing, I don't think is entirely complex. What we're trying to do is be with everyone at every step of the property purchase. So for our property developers, we'll help promote them in the Philippines, but if we think it is a viable property development for the Japanese market or the Korean market, we will help promote them in those markets. We don't take on every project. So our Japanese team are very, very well aware of what their clientele are looking for. So we may have a dialogue with a property developer, and our Japanese team will be, okay, we can sell that project. That works for us. we don't take on projects that we don't think we can sell in Japan. We've been working with a number of our partners for more than 5 years now, and we make sure that we provide value to them. The other element we look after is the property investor. So just say we have a Japanese client who purchases a off-the-plan property. We'll help with the paperwork, we'll help with all the document transfer, we'll help with the payments. When the property is actually released, quite often we'll do the walkthrough. Our local team in the Philippines will do a walkthrough, they'll inspect the property, we'll help with the turnover, and we'll actually outfit the property and help lease it. So we do an end-to-end process for our clients and our developer partners to ensure that everyone gets the maximum value out of their transaction. So the other thing we're doing is obviously using digital means to try and make this as easy as possible, whether it's supporting blockchain payments, which we're getting onto, as well as many different other areas. We want to make sure we're helping people along the entire process. In terms of our overseas markets, we are active in Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia. We really want to expand potentially to Australia. I mean, I'm not saying that just because I'm Australian, but we think there's a great opportunity to sell some Philippine property to Australian investors. And we really want to expand our online and offline services for local developers to many different overseas markets. Obviously, our main ones now are Japan and Korea, but we are looking at other markets as well to really promote properties. And then there's the question, why Philippine properties? What is it about properties in the Philippines that are attractive to Japanese and Korean investors? We've gone through some of these elements before, but I think when you look at the demographics of the Philippines in terms of the average age, which is quite young for a country, that really shows that there will be demand for housing going on into the future. The other element that I refer to a lot is the quality of the property developers and properties here. All of the big property developers over the pandemic, I think most of them didn't lay off any staff. They may have cut budgets and delayed some projects, but generally property developers here are safe compared to many others in other countries. Philippines isn't as dependent on tourism revenue as some other countries were over the pandemic, and that really hit their property markets. Also, property developers here are quite well funded in terms of having enough bankroll for a rainy day, so to speak. So when we're talking about credibility as being the number one thing for Japanese to make purchases, that's why our job is made easier by the quality and the track record of many of the property developers here in the Philippines. So those are a couple of factors about the Philippines that we find interesting. What I'd like to do now is play a little video message from Hiroki Kazato, our CEO. I just hope our internet works here. What do you think, Chloe? Hopefully? Okay, let's cross fingers. Let's see how we go.
Konnichiwa. I'm Hiroki Kazato, founder and CEO of Property Access. Greetings from our Tokyo office. First, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. So far, it has been great for Property Access. We started this company in 2017, envisioning that we would be able to elevate the real estate experience through trust, transparency, and accessibility. These core values are driving forces of our business that have strengthened our company from business partnership all the way to customer transactions. For the past year, Property Access has been venturing into new markets, strengthening our current Japanese investor market, and creating robust integrated real estate platforms. We have established Property Access Korea in 2021 and have been introducing and marketing Philippine properties to Korean investors since then. For Japanese market, since 2020, we have registered over $100 million worth of sales in the region, with 3.8 billion pesos for the Philippines alone. For Property Access Philippines, we have been constantly improving our platform and making our vision of elevating the real estate experience and borderless platforms more into a reality. With access to the Japanese and the Korean markets, Philippines developers and agents now have more opportunity to expand their business and create a thriving property market. From a very small team to a team filled with competent and hands-on individuals all over Asia, I have seen nothing but growth in property access, and I cannot wait for you to partake in success with us. With this, I hope you will join and support us in our continuous growth, and together, let's make the real estate industry better for all of us. Maraming salamat po.
We, as I mentioned, got very. Oh, here's